time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Verification of meeting notice.
Meetings minutes were posted as required.
Public comments. Public comment procedure. This is the time visitors and guests may address the board on any agenda item. The board president at her discretion may limit comments to no longer than 3 minutes. We're going to move the amount of public comments to be at the end of the policies.
Unless you're ready. Okay.
If that works.
No problem.
Okay. So, discuss and take possible action on policy manual 33.2 revisions. The first one is 3431 employee leaves.
All right, so I'll just do what we did last week and go through each one. I apologize. I don't know if you could click on the links other than the revisions unless you're logged into our drafts. So they are active now because you have to be logged into the board docs to do that. So employee leaves is that's pretty small, huh? Oh boy. That's what I wanted to do. So at the bottom, if you're asked to leave for, instead of saying criminal court, it says legal proceeding. Instead of criminal matter, it says matters. There's really not a lot of changes to this other than verbiage or words.
The next policy would be 4431, so is that for support staff?
Yep, same exact thing, but one's for professional staff, one's for support staff, same verbiage change in each of those. Controlled substance and alcohol policies to report. This is policy 4162. So there's a lot taken out of here. Controlled substance and alcohol policy and for employees that transport students.
So it looks like you're getting rid of that policy and replacing it with the next one, 8601.
Yes, so that is going to be gone. Thank you. And it's going to be completely replaced with 8601. That one was so outdated that there was no language that we could keep with that to keep up with the current law on that. And there were a couple of typos in there that I had to correct. So we had just a capitalization on drivers that I had to change here. Took out the word on. Again, capitalization. Substance, I had an S2 capitalization error there. Added this to be and or instead of just and. Again, typos, capitalizations. And just make sure that we refer to each other policy that is related to it. It's pretty standard for workplace. It wasn't me. Any questions on that one, or should I go on to attendance? Yep, okay, attendance. This one was revised. Wants to load for me. Here we go. So this is policy 5200. The word calendar was written in instead of 30 days, so now it's calendar days. Just to make that distinction between calendar and business days, we have to make that specific. Severe weather conditions. So, quarantining for severe weather conditions and parents' reasonable judgment, weather conditions are a danger to the health and welfare of the students. So, it has always been, if the weather conditions are too bad and we don't call off school, you'll often see that we'll put that as a notation to parents that if you feel that the roads are not safe and you don't want to bring your child to school today, your child will be excused. And we've always done that. We're just saying that we're going to include that in policy for them.
What's the next thing?
Taps. Like a student grades 6 through 12 may be excused for the purpose of sounding taps during military funeral or for a deceased veteran. We have not had the opportunity to do that right now with our middle school band. So rest of these were typos, adding in semicolon because of the letters there. I think that was it for that one. Oh, changing the date too. This was updated in 2020. Any questions on this one? Employee leaves, again, is 40. Sorry, which one were you saying?
Administration of medication.
Yeah, thank you.
5330.
Administration of medication. The child is disabled is now replaced with students with disabilities. Instead of their, the pronoun, we put the students. Practitioner used to include all of these listed, but then this kind of doctor was added as well. Non-narcotic was misspelled, it needs to be hyphenated. The big changes are here. So the administration of prescription drug products for the school, we have to add that we need to keep documentation on file in the school office. The nurse's office, health room are end of our options, so we need to select an option there. I would just say the school office would be the best option to keep all records because that's where everything else is kept. We don't, I mean, we have a nurse's office, but that's not always stationed with someone, and I don't have a secure locking file in there like we have in the office. So we have that safe in the office, and we have locking files in the office. So I think that the office would be the best option for that, not the health room.
And for the prescription part, does it actually have to have the prescription information on it? Like, could somebody bring a prescription in an unlabeled bottle?
Nope, it has to be labeled even if a student brings in aspirin or ibuprofen for headaches, they have to bring in on a policy, and it has to be labeled with the child's name on it for us to administer it, and we're supposed to keep records of all of that. And then same thing for non-prescription drugs, so like I said, like over-the-counter ibuprofen or medicine, again, this would be checked with the school's office.
And what about inhalers? Do those get kept in the office, or do they keep them on their person?
Depends on the student's medical plan. Some students have them on them because they need to.
Okay.
Others have some on them and one in the office. Sometimes there's two.
If they have them on,
Most of the time, inhalers on the kid.
do we still have them on documentation about it?
Yep, they have a medical plan for that. Or a health plan. Questions about that one? Okay. Class rank. So, class ranking system by grade point average. So my question would be, how important is this for us in a system or under the high school? Do we want to have the grade point average and ranking system and post that for students? This policy is saying that yes, we want to do that.
So if you have 40 students, you go 1 to 40, or do you just list like high honors and low honors?
High honors and low honors is traditionally it.
I would say do that, and then do like the 1 to 40, or.
Yeah. I'd have to ask, before my time here, I'm not familiar with whether or not they posted honor roll, high honors and things like that in media. I'd have to ask if they did that in the past. I believe they did prior to
I think they did a couple of years ago, because I've had some staff approach me with that, wanting to get back into
So
that.
this would give us the option to do that.
Yes, to do the honor roll, high honor, because they believe they did that 2 years back.
Okay. We tried to do a little bit of it last year. We had that 8th grade class, we were trying to get them ready for high school, and we are currently looking at adding some nice STEM classes and electives for next year.
Yeah, and Sean, Mr. Fisher does do, in his passport class, the class that he did the interviews for, he does some nice financial literacy items there.
Yes.
Seen him, he had someone from the bank come in, checkbook, your basic.
Because we had that person coming in part-time last year for the 2 grades, or just the 8th graders, to do that readiness class.
Yep.
And that was part of it. I strongly suggest that we continue to do that. I think financial literacy is one of the
That's
most
huge.
important life skills that a kid can have. So I think all 8th graders, we need to provide them with that.
Now, bank, I don't know which bank you did it with last year?
This year he did, 5 and 9.
Yeah, because you want to do that, that's where we do our banking, but they also offer an incentive, they put money in the account for them. If they put so much in the account for a certain amount of time, they'll put a little bit of money in there for them
And
also.
she may have talked about that,
Yeah.
the gal, that came out, and discussed it. It was good, it was in there for, presentation as well, so.
Awesome.
So then we would just post this as our part of our grant requirements for 8th graders. If we want to do that, which academic honesty, this is a revision, 5505. Honesty, what expectations was added. So that the student learns the skills being taught was added in here. All its forms was replaced with any manner. This is all just words, kind of like wordsmithing, changing the words, verbiage. The part of it hasn't changed. The academic honesty, we did have to add in, this is the major thing here for AI, artificial intelligence, as you know, is pretty, you can ask a social studies teacher or a language arts teacher, this is a real thing now. And that is actually one of our books for book studies for staff is AI, how AI is gonna change the world of education. So we have to put something in here where AI is not specified in the assignment that they have to be honest about, otherwise it's known as cheating, because it's getting harder and harder to detect these kids that are cheating. Long gone are the days where you could just, copy and paste and figure out a kid was cheating. Now you can just say the words of what you want from the topic and AI will spit out a paper for you.
And Mrs.
Quite
Stapleton's
good.
already had a few discussions, with some of the intermediate kids with this, and what that looks like.
Definitely needed with the way technology is going there. Suspension and expulsion. So this is 5610. So suspension and expulsion, this was added, exclusionary discipline is appropriate to address serious misconduct or when alternatives such as in-school discipline or restorative practices have been ineffective to address a student's repeated refusal to neglect to obey school rules. The school board supports utilizing developmentally appropriate interventions and supports rather than exclusionary discipline or supports in students in 2nd grade or below. So we're saying that we want alternatives to expulsion and suspension for kids in that age level. And, to be honest, it's developmentally appropriate. You don't see too many kids in the state of Wisconsin in an alternative setting or even getting expelled at that age level. I mean, we frankly don't see too many kids at the high school level getting expelled these days. We're trying to look for alternative means to help these kids to get a high school diploma and to get an education. So that language was added there. Students identified with a disability may be suspended in accordance with that. So disciplining students with disabilities, just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you are exempt from being suspended or expelled. That's pretty clear in Wisconsin state law as well. For students with IEPs or individual education plans, they can still be suspended, they can still be disciplined, they can still be expelled. It's just a different process that we follow. So that language was added in for them as well. Questions about that one? Search and seizure is the next one, 5771. the search of a student or a student's possessions will be directed by the principal or available administrator. So it could be me, it could be Mrs. Hose, any available administrator at the time. If I'm not in the building or on grounds, then Mrs. Hose could do that.
So then you actually conduct the search?
Yep. Any administrator can conduct a search. That's what it means. Which it always has been that case. If a student refuses to do it, they could, and then you would just have to call law enforcement at that point in time. Which I've had that happen with high schoolers in the past, like, yep, nope, I'm not turning my phone over to you, or I'm not, I'm not emptying my pockets or emptying my backpack, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll call the police and you can do it then.
Just a quick question. If the administrator does perform a search of property and finds paraphernalia and whatnot, and I'm hoping to find that at the grade school level, but do we have a policy in place that says that the administrator then immediately stops and contact, or is that like past practice? Or, I mean, when you cross that line of legal versus minor type of, infractions?
Yeah, it depends on the age of the student and what we find. Unfortunately, you do find things on elementary school kids. There's times when you find knives, guns, bullet casings. There's times when they take a sibling's backpack and there's things in there that are drug paraphernalia and happens. Or dad's hunting bag and there's a weapon there. It does happen sometimes. If we catch wind of it, so they say that I check so-and-so's bag, I'll go to their locker and check immediately. I won't let anybody know. Depending on what I find and the age of the child, yeah, we will inform the parents right away. Because you don't want a minor being questioned by the police without the parents present, so you go through all that steps.
Okay. I was just wondering what the process was in that instance.
Graduation requirements.
Use of credit cards.
Oh,
A little bit further.
use of credit cards. Why does it always go back there? I'm just trying to get through I want to go back and read everything. Credit cards. This is verbiage, so may instead of shall, and then the credit card may never be used to purchase alcohol or personal items or services. So, that's always been a practice. We've never allowed that in the past for that either. We're just spelling it out and saying you can't use the credit card for alcoholic beverages, which it did say that before. It said personal purchases or the purchases of alcoholic beverages were not in there. Under no circumstances was replaced with the credit card, meaning never. Just verbiage. Assistive tech. This is policy 7540. So assistive technology used in conjunction with the student's individual education plan IEP shall be used with any external communication or recording function disabled except as provided in the student's IEP. So this is just spelling it out a little more detail for students who have assistive technology in their IEPs. For our district, assistive technology in current IEPs, it's less than 10%, probably 5%. Between 5 and 10% of students with IEPs in the district have assistive tech on there, so it's not a common accommodation at this point in time for us, but that depends on the student's needs. That could always change in any time. Use of social media, 7544. That's not the right one. It's linked to the wrong one, so I'll read that to you from here. So this policy is updated to provide additional language to address the continuous evolving environment of social media and the potential dangerous circumstances in which staff interact with students through social media and related forms of electronic communication. So athletic program apps is included in that. And selection of, and so that is added in to protect the district in the event that a staff member is doing inappropriate communication through social media with students. Just spelling it out for you, protecting the kids to not engage in that kind of activity. services can be face-to-face and virtual, so, and, you know, this is something, post-COVID era, we have been able to get a lot of mental health services virtual, so adding in that virtual option for kids, that was the change here for this one. Wellness 8510, we did just have our food service audit yesterday, they were here the entire day from DPI. We did well in the audit, we will not get additional requirements as part of the audit, so it's good to know, we don't have any extra things that we need to do for it. The audit right now is set up to do once every 5 years. I don't know what the extent of the corrections is, but we have far less than we did 5 years ago, so we're in good shape. They did tell us that we need to add in wellness policy 8510, which it's not showing. It's okay, I'll show you this one. So 8510, as part of the audit, they had to go through it because I said we were bringing the draft to the school board. They went through this version with a checklist that's on my desk, and it passed everything in here on their checklist. So this would need to be added for us to pass our food service report. We have not had this policy in the past, which is why it doesn't come up. We have to add this one in. Otherwise, the state's going to say you're not compliant and you have to add it.
So it's mainly relating to food service?
Yep. It's all the state requirements for nutrition, how to run the program. Transportation, 8600. Non-routine use of school buses is being taken out. So the board may permit the school buses owned or leased by the school district for use of purposes other than regularly scheduled routes. Well, we're not going to allow that because that's,
It's hard enough to find buses.
yeah, and if it's not scheduled, if it's not a regularly scheduled routine thing, frankly, I don't think that our insurance company would allow us to do that anyway, so we're saying, yeah, we're not gonna do that.
One question, Chris. When we go to Washington DC, we take a bus to the airport. Is that,
It's
that's a
scheduled.
field trip, so, because that's
Yeah,
like.
it's scheduled,
kind of-
school sanctioned, we're okay.
So that's not.
Yep.
You did say surveillance on school bus, do we have surveillance on the school buses?
We do. We currently have cameras, and Mrs. Ho's can attest to how many times we get referrals on the school bus, how much we have to use that camera, but I always
I
say.
think Jim from Right Way loves when he gets a call from me and
I always say,
specify which video I need to see in what bus, and there's volume on it, so you get the true character of a child on the bus, because they don't know, oh yeah, there's volume on there too. So.
the ace on my sleeve is always when I ask a kid and they say, no, I didn't do that on the bus, I say, you know that you're recorded on the bus, and if you make me go look at that camera and I find out you're lying, it's gonna be worse for you. Oh yeah, I did do that. Yeah. Most of the time I don't have to look. Transportation to field trips. I believe we talked about this last month, about how we wanted to add in the transportation just to the field trips, right? And,
Yes.
or just to, our sporting events and not offer it afterwards, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that one's an error on my part there. Non-routine school buses, rescind, so that's taking out, again, that's being replaced with the 8600. Transportation to private school, district-sponsored events, that is along with 8600, it just adds in the private school part. And transportation services contracts, the last one, 8680, and then I think we're gonna be caught up with policies for a while here, finally. Bus gets changed out to transportation. We've got, for student safety was added. District-owned vehicles, again, is taken out for transporting students. That is addressed in the other policy that we approved last month. It's just transferring from this policy to the other one. Okay, questions on anything before you head forward? I know we went
because when I was a school board member, our main thing was to represent our community and to write the policy out of our heart and write the policies that go to the community. Not to take policies from a Marxist organization in another state. That Neola that you get your policies from takes your authority away from you. You guys sold your souls. Your authority, it's so much easier if we just have them write the policies. And that's where the problems come in. The school board is elected by the community to take care of give our students the best education, to care about our community and listen to them. And it's like, what is going on? Why is the school board not talking? Why are they not writing policies? And when I made suggestions and thinking that you guys are doing this behind closed doors or something, I didn't realize that you're just taking your marching orders from this organization and you don't care. This is why I had a little problem, and this is why I was saying you need to take this authority back. You did a very good job, Chris. Thank you again for doing all that. But most of that stuff, they send the stuff, and apparently Chris does most of that work. That's what you guys are elected for. That's where my issues came in, where I had differences come in, trying to figure out what in the world's going on here. Because, like I said, we just cared for the kids so much, and we cared for our community that we wanted to have local policies. And that's what it was. But I appreciate you guys doing this and explaining how these policies, but the policies, when we would get a policy, we'd write it up, we would read it for the whole, everybody out here to hear what the policy was. And the board members that weren't in the committee made comments and say, I think we need to do this, or I think we need to do this. And then the next month, it got voted in. That's how we used to do things. And it took a little longer, but they were policies that were made from us, homegrown. And that's where I just wanted to let you guys know. And I apologize for taking a while to try to figure out what in the world is going on and what happened to education in this time that I haven't been in the schools. And it just like, oh my goodness, now I can see why education has gone down, But I appreciate you guys, and I just wanted to say thank you and give you an insight and say thank you for at least getting this far instead of just throwing them up there on the meeting thing.
Any discussion, anybody would like to have before we do a motion? All right, any policies? Hold on, I think you wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, to approve the policies that we just went over. I'll just say, again, along with Hartford Joint 1 Horicon, Holy Hill, Hughesbury, Dodgeland, Mayville, we all subscribe to Neola policy. I wish there wasn't as many lawyers in this world as there is, but from 20 years ago, there's a lot more legal battles, unfortunately, in the world today. And I'm sure the policies are from the past were great and dandy, and I would agree with all of them, but there just isn't enough for every scenario, which, that Neola covers that we have to go over. It's just the way of the world. It is the way of the world. We're part of it. I can't make it. So.
And we do all care about the kids and the community. I don't want anybody to ever question that, because we wouldn't be here otherwise, investing our time not only on these evenings, but throughout the whole year.
I know, but I'm just saying that's where our focus was, and I guess I will have
I
to
have to limit the
focus.
comment because we already did the comment. I apologize.
The only thing I would like to say is, after being a new board member, I am simply amazed at, from the state and federal level, how much our hands are tied. And the policies and such that we have to adopt sometimes are not necessarily what the board agrees with, but we are regulated to a point we can't disagree constructs of what we're given. And that is more than difficult sometimes. So,
All right, with that, I'll make a motion to, accept the policy revisions to 33.2.
I'll second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I make a motion to adjourn the policy committee meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Hey.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we are going to do call to order and roll call for the board meeting. So we'll start on your side, Zach.
Here.
Aye. Colton?
Here.
Brady?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
And then we will do pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Statement of purpose, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Next, we have verification of meeting notice.
Minutes were posted as required.
Public comments, public comment procedure. This is the time visitors and guests may address the board on any agenda item. The board president, at her discretion, may limit the comments to no longer than 3 minutes. Okay. Dan?
Thank you very much. Hi. First off, on agenda item 5B, the mentor program and the stipend issue. I don't know when wage negotiations happen, but it'd be nice, I think, if this kind of addition to compensation would be done at the same time wages were negotiated, so that there's always a easy way to see the big picture on what our compensation program really is. I know in other levels of government, there's a wage package passed, and then during the year, there's always something added for here, added for there, and by the time you're done, you really don't know where things are at. So that'd be one thing I would ask. Also a question, how do we determine the qualifications of a mentor? Is there a bar they have to meet, or is it just because they want to be? Who's going to determine who's qualified? I think it gets a little more now that word, gets a little harder to figure out where we're at if we don't have those things written down. I don't know if that's something that is going to be done, and just because someone wants to do it, does that make them qualified? I'm hoping that teachers that get hired are qualified to teach, that we don't have to take a special time out to help them learn how to teach in our schools. Because I believe our school district is special. It's not like MPS where parents do not care. Our parents do care. And as far as retaining teachers, typically it's not because of finances or things like that. It's typically because they don't get along with their boss. That's when you see an exit out the door. And I don't believe we're going to have that problem here in this district either. So maybe we don't have to decide on this right now tonight. Maybe we should move that to whenever negotiations are. I heard it was done annually. And one other thing on agenda item 5C, the 5-year budget forecast. We know budgets are revenues and expenses. How much money in, how much money out. Revenues are enrollment. It's a basis of what we receive. And student numbers and funding per student. It seems that that's always in a flux. So it's difficult to really create a budget for a school system, no doubt. I'm going to ask a little bit more about that, but also on the expense expense side, we had a referendum last year, and the district overwhelmingly said we want to maintain our two buildings, and we need to have care for them, and we need to do good upkeep on these two buildings. And wages and benefits obviously are another expense also, that I'm not going to address tonight, but as far as enrollment goes, there are projections out now. The high school did a study last March, and I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was done by the Applied Population Laboratory, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Again, done for the high school, a 10-year projection on what they figure enrollment is, because they have to know what they're looking at for their budget. And they stated solidly in this study that the next 5 years, expect enrollment decrease of 11 to 14%. Don't expect anything magic to happen unless we would get an influx of families into all 3 of our towns or village, and they each had 4 to 6 children. There isn't going to be a lot of extra students coming through the school system. So we have to be wise to that too. The population trends are level or falling in our 3 districts. Housing starts have decreased. So this all adds up. Single-family housing brings in more students than multiple family, the duplexes or multifamily housing. And it seems that cities are putting up more of the multifamily things than any single-family housings. Number of children have decreased according to this study.
Dan,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to bring it to a close just because we are out of time.
Okay, so I encourage you to take this seriously as far as our 2 buildings, and I look forward to discussion about what the board thinks about how we're going to maintain these 2 buildings. Thank you.
Next is recognitions for staff, student, and donations.
All right, so I will do our recognitions for students of the month for my building, and then I think Mrs. Ho would like to do some for hers as well for going on. So every month at the elementary school, we have a theme for students, and the teachers get to nominate kids based on their grade level or their area, like art, music, PE, for a different theme. December's theme was inclusiveness. The students were students that were voted the most inclusive or recognized at our Little Birdie Rally on December 20th. And those students were, from 4K we had Brady Johnson, from 5K we had Stevie Reddick, from 1st grade we had Danica Armentrout, from 2nd grade Fiona Garrett, 3rd grade Aiden Hennis, 4th grade Peyton Grollo, from art Cassandra Day was nominated, from PE Annabelle Sigmund was nominated, from library Oliver Mance was nominated, and then for our specials, which would be reading teachers and specialists, Skyland Hart was the winner for that. In January, our students are working on perseverance, which I think is always a good one. How do you persevere to deal with adversity? Mrs. Howes, would you like to add
Yes.
anything yours, or you can do it during your
No,
report if you'd like?
I can do it right now. We have student of the month that we do. We have December, January obviously coming up. And how we do it, we just kind of put out a survey and teacher discussion and collaboration with who they feel where student lies as far as academics, character-wise. So for the month of December, it was 5th grader Ben Becker. And then what we do is we have teachers kind of do a blurb. So if you come into the intermediate, you'll see Ben's picture, and then just the quotes or the blurbs that teachers said about Ben. And then we had for 6th grade Faith Lauersdorf. In 7th grade we had Sophia Homestead. And then for 8th grade we had Peyton Hughes. Okay, so then month of January, end of the month, we'll do that same thing. And then like I said, we do post them on the bulletin board, and then in my newsletters as well. And then the kids come down for a certificate, and they give a little, intermediate kids love any type of food that you would give in the way. So they get to pick out of the bucket for student room. So.
And so the elementary school, I just want to add to that, it's pretty similar to when the kids would come here for the photo, except it's the birdie rally in front of all their peers, they get a huge celebration, but they get celebrated by their peers, their teachers, the teacher reads out their nomination to the whole group, they all applaud for them, they get a picture with their certificate, and they get the gift card to either Scoop DeVille or
kids get pretty riled up, they're pretty excited for it, so, except my daughter, she gets nervous. No, it was really neat to see.
Unanimous consent agenda, it's the first time I think I saw unanimous there.
So we have posted the minutes in there from last month, and then we have changed our we have expense and revenue, but we've changed a little bit of these reports. We wanted to make them more accessible, more summarized, easier for you to read. And Mrs. Smithyman has helped me to create these, so if you have any specific questions, because she loves to talk in public, you could ask her any questions about those reports.
They are easier to understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Are they?
I went through each one again, and I'm like, wow, it's
Yeah.
like so much
Easier to
easier,
look at.
easier to filter through and see.
Yes,
I appreciate your hard work for that.
yes.
We did add in this approval of vouchers. As the school board, you should be approving all of our checks that we're issuing to people every month, so we wanted to make sure that that was on there every month for you to see, separated for you. The assets report summarized for you. You can see for the month of December all the assets. We did keep our expense report at that nice 18-page expense and revenue report. So it's up to you whether or not you want us to keep adding those in every month, or if you would just like us to go through A through D per month. Is that accurate, Mrs. Smith? So it'd be up to you if you would like us to keep including E and F in there, we certainly can. We just want to make sure that we're following suit with what other local districts are doing and making it easier for you to actually read your packet and understand.
I would like to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I would
just,
too.
So add them in there, okay? We can do that, no problem. Personnel recommendations, no retirements, nobody leaving the district, no hires.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next is items for discussion and possible action. First one is 2025-26 open enrollment allocations.
Yeah, so school boards in the state of Wisconsin are required by statute to allocate open enrollments for each school year prior to the opening of the regular open enrollment application period. This is due early February, so school districts across the state of Wisconsin all have this in their school board agendas for the month of January. So, right now, our projected enrollment, based off of what we're seeing right now, I mean, we obviously haven't had 4K information day yet, that's happening, or 4K info night is happening in March here. We don't know what we're gonna have there with 4K. Best projections are 312. The total amount of seats I'm recommending per grade level are listed here, with the 2 teachers at 4K, 2 at 5K, 2 at first grade. So all the elementary school grades through 4 all have 2 teachers, so we're not putting 40 kids in each classroom, saying we have a max of 20 in each classroom for that one. So right now, let's say like 3rd grade is one of our smaller classes, we have 34 kids that we're projecting to enroll in there. Current 3rd grade, we're moving to 4th grade, we're at 24, so I'm saying we have room for 16 seats with that group. Special ed open enrollment, I'm saying 0 across the board. We are extremely understaffed in special ed, those numbers continue to increase, and we're not the only district in the state that has issues with maintaining staffing for special education services. So SEL services, special education services, there's high expense for that, there's high teacher turnover, there's not a lot of teachers available for those areas. Right now, I'm projecting an increase in special education staff for next year already, and that will be discussed in our 5-year financial plan, so.
Do we have any kids in this special ed right now?
For open enrollment, we had a few seats last year in some of the some of the intermediate grades, we had some open seats. I'm saying that we don't have room right now that's federally mandated, so it's not like something I can say, hey, we're gonna cut here and not do that. IEPs are federally mandated. If there's a need for students with special needs, we have to add that staff member. Which is why I don't wanna get into that with open enrollment, because then that could make things financially very unpredictable for the district.
Any discussion on the open enrollment allocations?
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment applications as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is discuss and take possible action on the mentor program.
So a mentor program I presented last month.
And I do believe you had guidelines for people,
Yes, I did. So,
not just anybody could be a mentor.
correct. All new teachers and teachers on improvement plans will be assigned mentors. They have stipulations. Their mentors need to have at least 3 years of teaching experience. They need to be effective or distinguished rated based on our current process. Mentors will have training provided to them. Mrs. Holmes and I were just speaking about this today about getting them some mentor training through CESA 6 this summer. So I did reach out to staff as you asked. The responses that I got were overwhelmingly positive. Staff saying, I've been a mentor in the past, I'd love to do that again. Saying, being a new teacher last year, they really wish that this was an option for them. And the only change I had was looking at that $500 to see like, hey, is that in line with what other districts are charging? Is that a fair rate to give people? And that this puts us right in line with our neighboring districts. We're not the least paying and we're not the highest paid, we're right where we should be with the mentor pay with that.
Now, as far as the compensation model that we're currently using, at one point we had that you could go to different levels through different things. Could the mentor program be part of the compensation model, that could be one of the areas that you could do to move up a level?
We could look at changing our compensation model, yes, to include things like mentor pay or other stipends. It currently doesn't reflect that.
How, just out of curiosity, how many mentors roughly are we talking about?
This year, we would be looking at,
Is it every new employee, or is it just,
it would be every new employee to the district. So if you're new to teaching in general or new to your educational position, you'd get it. Or if you were new to the district, you would also get it. If you're new to the teaching profession, at 2 years would be mandatory for you. It would be optional for 2 years for the person who's a veteran who just transferred to the district. Monthly meetings, some of those things will not be required if you're a veteran who's transferring to the district. That's more depending on the needs of that staff member.
And roughly, how many do you think that would be?
Right now, we are projecting, I think there's only 2 right now, right, Mrs. Holmes, is that correct?
Yes, I have one.
I have one in my building as well, so you'd be looking at $1,000.
And one of the new teachers in my building, I'm kind of her mentor, but I don't expect to get paid or anything. But I think it's very important for new teachers coming in, because it's one thing, the one I'm mentoring had voiced that she really likes our weekly meetings, when I meet with her, because they are brand new, and when you graduate from college is different when you then come into a school and you're kind of like, oh, now I have all these kids, it's different, I mean, it's so different.
The theoretical world versus the real world.
Yeah, so she appreciates that. So right now I just have one in my building, because then the other 2 new hires are veteran teachers from a nearby school district, and they are they're very confident where I touch base with them just to see if they need anything, but they're very familiar with our programs because it was in nearby school district, so.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm asking is just, if we're talking about financial compensations, what kind of an impact is that gonna have on the district?
Yeah.
You know, if there's 20 mentors, it's much different than if we have 2.
And it depends on the amount of new staff that we have coming in next year. We'd be looking at 2 to 3 right now for next year. Better would be second-year teachers. And another important reason for this, for the mentoring piece, yes, we normally would put this with our handbook and do that at the start of the year, or whenever we're trying to redo our compensation model. However, if we have a teacher who is in need of improvement and needs to be put on an improvement plan, offering them whatever we can to support them is best practice, and mentoring is part of it. If we don't offer mentorship to help a teacher who is in need of help, we're kind of we're not supporting our staff, and that's kind of a lead to turnover.
I like the whole concept of the mentor program. I think you get some gray areas, like I know what you're saying about an improvement plan, so say somebody isn't put on an improvement plan in March, there's a couple months left to school. Is somebody gonna get 500 for that, are we gonna prorate for that amount of time? I guess I would like to see the mentor program alongside the compensation model and see if it's something that should be combined or become part of the compensation model. Just because the compensation model in the past has been written to have staff do different things to move a level. So is this something that should be included as part of that, an option that they can do? And maybe when we look at them side by side, we'll say, hey, that's not appropriate, we need to do this separately. But to look at it at the next meeting, just because we wanna, if we're gonna put something in place, we probably wanna do it before fall. But those are just my thoughts.
My thoughts on it are, is, you know, I think it's a fantastic idea. I would just like to see a little bit more, I don't know how it would be attainable, but more of a structured thing as far as compensation goes, because if we don't wanna have this just go nuts and suddenly we have 25 mentors on the books because everybody gets $500. You know, I mean, not saying that's what would happen, but it can. I've seen programs like this in my business go out of whack. So, we could cross that bridge when we get to it as well. I'm not saying I have a perfect answer for that, but just not leave it as an open-ended, so to speak. But I think definitely, someone who's willing to donate their time to help someone else should be compensated for that. And it's nothing but good for the district for a program like this. And just from the financial side of it, you have to keep track of it, that's what I'm getting at.
Maybe even a little accountability from the person getting mentored, you know, at halfway or at the end of it, and saying, or did they even get something? Did the person do their job? Did the mentor help them?
Right.
Or did they just, you know, fill a spot?
It is a great concept, it's a great idea, and unfortunately, in this world we live in today, it's very hard to find good employees. And somebody can talk the talk, but they can't necessarily walk the walk, so you gotta have programs in place to help.
Anything money spent here, it's cheaper to spend this money to retain a teacher versus lose and rehire a new teacher, hands down. So, I mean, anything we can do that is definitely a win.
So can we table it till next month and look at it kind of alongside the compensation model and see if it's something that should be part of that, or talk about it a little more?
And just for, Chris, would you be able to go back on, say, the last 5 years of staffing and see how many people would have qualified for it? You know, it's impossible to know how this is gonna look going forward. But we could look backwards and say, okay, there was 6 new teachers this year, there was 2 new teachers this year. I mean, how much money are we actually talking about here? Because, you know, looking backwards is at least an estimate of what we would be looking at going forward.
Yep, I can do that.
I think maybe it could be even combined as one mentor per building. You know, I don't foresee that many different hires.
We should also probably factor in any retirements.
Yep.
It will be in the next 5 years as well. Because that will lead to vacancies, I think.
You know, you talk, you know, one full day of new teacher, you know, orientation vacation during the summer, I mean, I don't know, you could give them $500, I don't know if you're gonna get a teacher a full day here in the summer. So, I mean, if you get a couple there, you know, with one, I don't know, I get they might not need the whole day, but I think you could kill two birds with one stone there, probably, some of that stuff.
Anything else on that? Anybody? We will move to discuss HNR 5-year budget forecast.
All right, so Mrs. Smith-Dominic, this is our first attempt at doing the Baird forecast model. I just want to kind of let you know an overview of this. And then summarize some of this stuff, and then give you time to think about scenarios that we're going to project or show for you for next month. So, really small, I apologize for that. So
It's kind
our,
of a moving piece.
yep, so I wanna, so we have a current year here of 24, 25. We're currently showing a surplus at this point in time of $17,685, so we're right in line of where we should be. If everything goes the way that they're projecting for the biennial budget, which that's how the state runs things, is they do school finances, really, we live our life on a 2-year cycle. So the budget is being passed in 25-27 on July 1. We're going off of their projections of the $325 per pupil. If things stay steady and don't change, we're looking at having a deficit next year of $44,000 and a deficit in 26-27, sorry, the year 26-27 of about $100,000. So if you're looking at the 5 years across, you can see the deficit continues to increase each year. This is because we don't know anything past the year 27. Remember, it's a 2-year budget. So, I mean, Mr. Sigmund here made a comment about that, like school finance is very difficult. We really do live our life in a 2-year cycle. If nothing changes to funding, that's what we're predicting with this. So it's very hard to predict out past the 2-year cycle. We have a very healthy fund balance. Most districts, it's pretty common, we want to maintain at least 15%, and we can put that in our policy of what we want it to be. We will maintain X amount of percent for our fund balance, and we will not go to referendum unless we ever dip below that. So we can change our policy to say that, which I would recommend that we do. Right now, we're at 40.4%. So if nothing were to change, we would be, that fund balance helps us so we don't have to short-term borrow, right? So we would have to dip into fund balance or use fund balance starting already next year. And in 29-30, we'd still be at 19%, so we'd still be okay. So if nothing changes to the funding formula after 2027, we would continue to use our fund balance to help things out. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't know how that would happen because inflation, things go up, funding changes, it changes all the time. So the $44,000 and the $95,000, honestly, they don't scare me. I think that those are right where we should be because we have produced a budget for 5 years that has an increase in special education staffing. We have a health insurance increase of 10%. We were told to project between 7 and 10%. I projected the highest at 10%. It could come out as 7. It'd be a change there alone. Something else to factor in with health insurance is right now, staff. The district contributes 12% per staff member. You might decide as a school board, nope, we would like our staff to, oh, sorry, did I give you the wrong number there?
Yes.
Okay.
The staff contributes 7%.
Thank you, 7%. So we might say something like, oh, we want the staff to contribute 12%, because that would make us in line with, we contribute most out of any district in the area. We would be still the most contribution at 88%, so it would be, we're kind of probably working with M3 to figure out what that savings would be for us as a district, so that's one of the scenarios we're currently looking at. Okay, yeah, and health insurance is gonna increase, but staff are gonna have to kick in a little bit extra. That might be an option for us. I talked about the healthy fund balance of 40.4%. We're really good there. The model is showing that we're gonna start drawing from the fund balance in 25-26. I think with us, we're very conservative as a district, and I think the school board has been very financially responsible. If we are conservative with spending and staffing issues, historically, you're able to save money annually. And that those red numbers will get closer to zero. So anything past 2 years, again, it's a best guess, assuming that there's no changes to funding. I do want to make this note to you that unless we look at these scenarios to say like, hey, what are ways for us to save money, which is what I will start presenting next month. If nothing were to change, we would be looking at hitting below 15% probably in that 31-32 year. So then you'd be looking at, okay, we'd be planning for operational referendum in 29-30, 31-32 year referendum. So these numbers are good predictors to tell us, hey, we need to be financially responsible for the next 2 years to make sure we don't need that. And we are one of only, it's like 7 or 8 districts in the entire state of Wisconsin that have never gone to operational referendum. And Aaron School District is another one in the area, so we're very lucky in that we have never had to go to operational referendum. I also want to remind you that we also have set aside in the committed fund approximately $300,000. We can use that money to offset some of the maintenance and facility improvements. We also have Fund 46, approximately $2 million again, capital improvements. So we're going to look at different scenarios and different ways to use the committed fund, Fund 46, or different ways to move some of that money around, and we'll show what that will do to the 5-year budget. So what I would like to do is send you in our bi-weekly report some scenarios to give you time to review that, and then you can ask for additional scenarios that we can prepare ahead for next month's meeting.
It's a really nice tool, really nice visual, gives us a lot of information. So thank you both for putting it together.
One question I have.
If you knew how many spreadsheets we had to go through to give you this, you would be really surprised.
At least 27.
I think
27 tabs on one spreadsheet.
it was quite a learning experience for us both. So.
With carrying a positive fund balance of 40%, how does that affect our state aid? I mean, I know the state aid whole scenario there is very complicated, and I'm just beginning to wrap my mind around how it works. And I'm sure I'm wrong in some things I'm thinking here.
It doesn't affect our state aid. It's good for us to have that. It's so that we don't have to short-term borrow in the event that we can't make payroll. So, because there's times when we don't have money coming in as a district, and now we have that fund balance to use. Or in the event that we go over our budget, we have that safety net. The biggest thing for that fund balance is if we go to the taxpayers and say, hey, taxpayer, we were going to do a referendum, they're going to say, are you kidding me? You don't need an operational referendum. You've got 40% sitting in your fund balance. What are you asking for this for? So, which is why I strongly suggest we put that into policy that we will not go to referendum unless we are under X% in our fund balance.
Agreed.
So why don't you come up with a suggestion for that for the next meeting, or add it as part of the scenario so we can get that updated
Yep.
and give us some comparison of what some other districts are doing for that month. So no action there. Any more questions? What do we need? So then we will move to reports, district administrator report, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to update you on some of the safety updates that we've had going on. I mean, obviously, we just got back from holiday break. This last week was our first full week. I do want to let people know we got quite a lot of illnesses going on and influenza A going around. We have currently right now over 20% of the elementary building out. I believe Mrs. Hose at Intermediate has pretty close to that level of students missing as well.
We have only 10 today.
Oh, that was very good. We had quite a few staff members out today, including our front office. There was a revolving door of people trying to help out in lunchroom recesses and helping out the front door. The CDC doesn't have a recommendation for closure. They estimated is around 20%. Really, it comes down to administrative decision making. So if I determine that we can't staff, a day we can't support the kids, and I would have to call school. And just letting everybody know right now, we are on that borderline of having to cancel school, which we don't have a lot of days to play with. So I'd like to save those for inclement weather if we can. So please, if your child has a fever, keep them home. If they're fever-free for 24 hours and they can come to school, I think that's great. Wash your hands.
Have you seen whooping cough yet?
We have not yet. I think that the high school did release something recently about whooping cough, so hopefully that doesn't come our way as well. Right now, the big thing for us is influenza A. Safety additions to the buildings, we have at intermediate added electronic key fob up front, which is great. And I just met with technology, and finally, after I don't know how many years, we are getting cameras put up at intermediate once the weather gets nicer. So that was part of our budget that we projected with you, and some of that is actually coming from a grant. So we're having 4 cameras added at intermediate, which is going to be really nice. Next year, we'll be looking at updating some cameras in this building that aren't working quite so properly. I don't know what date it is. I'm kind of jealous of the cameras that Mrs. Holmes is getting over to intermediate.
Well, more so with the playground, it'll be nice, because we don't always play nice in the playgrounds. Nice to view some of those.
I heard the Gaga ball pit is the big.
What?
We got the Gaga ball pit. Is that still the area where the?
Yeah, the Gaga ball pit, I know that was a big thing for schools to put in. I don't know why, because that's where 99.9% of problems come into play, is the Gaga pit. So I
Will you be
shut
able to
down
hear-
the Gaga pit a few times at recess, and yeah, so.
Will you be able to hear with those cameras too?
I think
That's
so.
a good question.
That's a good Ryan question.
I don't
so-
answer that.
Oh, yeah, because they're, exactly.
But yeah, that's all I have for my report. So Mrs. Hose.
Yeah, so I kind of did intermediate elementary with some things that they're doing as well. At intermediate, our PBIS team is planning a reward trip for the students to the Admirals hockey game on March 5th. And it was a discussion, and I went around to the classes, so the kids knew the trip. They were very excited, but I said, not everyone gets to go, you have to earn it. And they can earn it by not having any Fs at the end of trimester 2, which comes up February 22nd or 23rd, I think that's when the trimester ends. And then also behavior, so they can't have more than 3 referrals from starting on January 13th on Monday through February 22nd.
Do you go on the trip?
What?
Do you go on the trip?
I will stay back with students that didn't earn the trip, so then staff members can go. So I told the kids I would love to go, so our goal is not to have anyone staying back. So we've had some referrals this week, we've had some reminder talks with some students, but they seem very excited just to take that bus down to Milwaukee, because it is at UWM, and it's a day, it's for schools, and we leave at 8:30 and we'll return about 2:30, so kids will have a bag lunch, or they can do concessions there, so they're pretty excited for it, and I think staff is as well.
Do you get to go, Hannah?
I hope so.
Yes, she does, that's why I said
She'll
she
nominate Hannah to drive the Zamboni.
There you go.
I'm in.
Basketball will be ending at the end of January, beginning of February. 7th and 8th grade girls and boys teams are super excited, because through the student council, they did get new uniforms. So they were very excited for those new uniforms to come in. They look really nice, they wore them for a game already. 8th grade registration for high school HHS starts this month. Showcase is on Wednesday, January 22nd, and that's open to all families. 8th grade families are encouraged and kind of recommended to attend. High school counselors come to honor intermediate on Tuesday, January 28th at 2 p.m. for the students, and then they do a presentation for parents at 5:30 that night in the cafeteria. We did a peer visit this month at HHS for their biology class versus biology bundle. So Danielle Goldbach and I were able to visit these classes to gain a better understanding of the difference between the offerings and what would be best for individual students when registering for the class, because that is kind of a big thing that 8th grade students have to decide. So Danielle was super excited because she obviously knows her students and kind of which way to guide them as far as the best offerings for them. End of the month fundraiser for Washington DC kids will be a Little Caesars pizza kit fundraiser. Those forms will be going home January 27th for students attending. At the elementary and intermediate, we've been reviewing our bus drop-off and pickup procedures, just due to the situation that happened with Sussex. I think it made a lot of school districts look at kind of just safety of those buses, so I changed mine already at intermediate, and today was the first day, just how the buses line up. And the bus drivers liked it, we liked it, it went really well. So I know at elementary, we talked, to Jim from Right Way, and we're gonna do the same thing here, just kind of, just look at that safety piece. Elementary had, PBIS continues with the Way to Go Wednesdays and Wellness Wednesday. Incentive Day and Little Birdie Rally will occur on January 31st. The elementary building, as well as fifth grade, is piloting Purposeful People, which is like a character strong type program that we definitely want to incorporate in K through 8 next year, and that kind of emphasizes, you know, just the respect, kind of like Chris said with the themes, but teachers would be able to teach many lessons to kids. Because I feel, especially at the intermediate level, and I'm sure elementary too, I think kids lack that piece, and truly understanding what does respect mean, what does empathy mean, and that program will help with that. So, we have those grades, second and fifth piloting that right now, so,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you both.
I do want to add too, we have Professional Development Day on January 24th coming up next week, Friday.
Yes, January 24th. Thank you.
Remind that, so I think you hit every other date in there. Basketball, more basketball coming up. We've got
Okay.
ski and snowboarding club on January 16th is also, so. January 24th is our HNR Professional Day, no school for students on that day.
Did we
Yes.
just have 10 days off?
Right,
nothing-
yeah,
sorry.
exactly.
I don't know what to tell you.
And then PTO
I
take,
don't know who.
PTO
Yeah,
take
yeah.
center, February 2nd, 4 to 6. So PTO is offering that. That'll be in my newsletter next week. They just sent that email as well. So thank you for your email.
Thank you. So that's it for announcements and events. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.